Saturday night.
I travel all over the place.
All right, so offensively, we've been through range, target recognition, and shot selection. Again, shot selection, making those decisions about which blows you're going to throw, so you can get to easier blows to throw. And we have the delivery and the recovery. Okay, offensively, delivery is, you know, we get that through pel work. Okay. How you throw your blows, you know, there are far too many answers to what is a correct blow. I mean, I've got my own ideas about the mechanics that I'm using. I'll probably be covering some of that tomorrow, so you can just kind of see what my mechanics are. But, you know, the delivery of the blow, once you've decided what you're going to throw to, you've got to be able to get that shot out there. For training, you know, delivery, if you're, you know, if you see a target, you made a good choice about the blows you're throwing, and you know you threw it and it just didn't hit right, or it wasn't hard enough, or you know the angle wasn't right, that's all part of delivery. And you can go back to the pel to figure out what you need to do to be able to execute those shots, to deliver properly. Okay, but that is another portion of the fight, that target recognition, shot selection, and delivery. You know, they all happen so fast together that, you know, it all seems like one thing, but it's not, right? So not a whole lot more on delivery, except that I mean, one of the things about that though is speed, their perception of speed, right? There's hand speed, which is the time that it takes for you to get your stick from your shoulder to your target. There's the recovery speed, which likewise coming back the other way. You know, there's speed is it's a perception. You know, there are a lot of things that you can do to increase it. One of the things, sorry, I'm kind of on a tangent. Along with that decision-making process, you know, the really impressive kind of speed is the speed at which you process information, not the hand speed. It's not how fast you can get from a target to, you know, from your shoulder to the target, but it's that, you know, being able to process information and make better decisions, right? So that's what we're trying to get to. So like I said, there's not much more on delivery. Just you have to execute your shots correctly, and the best place to do that is on a pel. Pel is where we can learn baseline mechanics, and once you establish what a baseline, you know, flat snap is, then you learn those variations from opponent to opponent through live combat, and that's about the only way you can do that, right? But recovery, as I said earlier, is the single most neglected portion of the entire fight. Okay. If we can say that from my sword on my shoulder right here, if I get 180 degrees of rotation on my sword to my target, and I'm hitting at a target that is clean and unobstructed, didn't get any kind of block on it, is it reasonable to assume that I'm going to deliver a telling blow? Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Just pretty much is that. So yeah, it is reasonable that we can deliver a telling blow if it's clean and unobstructed. Okay. Ideally, every blow you throw should have that same property about it. And the problem with the recovery that I often see is the first blow might be fine, but everything after that is crap, because you haven't completed the recovery. And usually what's happening is, I don't want you to grab a solution. Okay. A lot of times what we get, when you complete this one shot here, and you see that leg down there, you want it, because of, you know, the perception of speed and everything, you want to get to that faster. So you want to make that straight line getting there, right? You're trying to kind of cut this down here so that you can try to get from this target to that target faster, right? But by doing that, you don't have those same properties in that second blow that you have from here. Make sense? So after you complete the one shot, as you go through and you complete your recovery, wherever it is that it's going to, wherever your starting point is, right? If I throw the one, if that target is there, right, as I complete my recovery and I get my stick back through my shoulder, if that target is still there, then I am in a better position to throw better mechanics at that target, right? So the next blow that I throw is going to have those same properties and is going to land with the same kind of authority, right? If I complete that recovery and suddenly that target is no longer there, that tells me two things. First off, that target wasn't that good to begin with. And secondly, there is a target open somewhere else. Make sense? So the completing the recovery gets us back into that target recognition cycle, right? As I complete the blow going out, right? As the sword is coming back, I am now going to target recognition again, okay? When I deliver the blow, I don't have to tell my body how to throw a flat snap, right? We get that, that's part of delivery, right? And we learn that on the Pell or wherever you're gonna learn those mechanics from. My mind doesn't have to, okay, I rotate the hip, I extend out here, I don't have to do all that. My body knows how to throw a flat snap, which leaves my mind free to concentrate on these other things that are happening in the fight, right? So if I get my delivery here, right, once I complete this, as I complete the recovery going back to my shoulder, I am back into target recognition, right? So when that target presents itself, by the time my stick gets back to my shoulder, if it's a target that I saw and it's still there, then yeah, I'm in a good position to do that. But as I'm completing this recovery, I'm looking, and I'm not looking for targets, recognizing targets. I'm letting those targets present themselves because they have to. And I know it's kind of a concept that is kind of hard to really visualize, but you're gonna have to trust me on this one, okay? The targets are there, they have to be there, and if you're open to the possibility of those targets coming from anywhere, then you're much better able to recognize those targets when they do present themselves, right? So as you complete the one, so there's two portions to recovery. There's the physical recovery where you are putting your sword in a position where you can execute better technique, and then there's a target recognition portion of the recovery as well. And what you're doing with that is you are giving yourself the gift of time. You're giving yourself just that extra half a heartbeat that you need to truly identify the real target. Not the target that you want to be open, not the target that you wish would be open, but the one that actually is open, and to be able to truly identify what that is. And so in completing the recovery, you're giving yourself that time that you need, and it really is just a half a heartbeat. And in a lot of cases, like I said, people go, you go from one and you try to go to the other one, and you're trying to cut these angles because you think you need to get from one target to the next target faster, okay? In certain cases, if I throw here, and you get right about here, and then all of a sudden I see that the head wrap is open, right? And I think I can get that head wrap. When you get here, and I've seen this, stop in the middle of this and you try to go from there to throw the wrap. Well, what's happening is, as you're completing the recovery here and the sword is going this way, you actually have to stop the blade, regenerate motion again to be able to go to that wrap. So in that instance, it is actually faster to complete the recovery and then throw the wrap, right? That's the thing. A lot of people think that they're being faster by cutting the recovery and going from one target to the next target faster. Well, you're not going from target to target. You're not going better. You might be going faster, but you're not going better. So if you complete that recovery, every shot you throw has the same properties as the first shot that you threw, right? Later you get to a point later where, sweet spot of the stick, fat part of the bat here, this is the part of the stick that needs to have that recovery. I often have to tell people to, let your hand recover through your shoulder to be able to get it. I know you guys got the A-frame, you want to be out here and everything like that. Wherever your starting position is, you still need to get your hand back to that starting position, right? You're gonna hear me talking about recovering through the shoulder, okay? And as you complete that recovery, you're just giving yourself that little extra time that you need. So there's, like I said, the physical part of the recovery, so that every blow you're throwing has the same properties as the blow before, and then the target recognition portion of recovery. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, go ahead and sit down. So that's the offensive side. Range, target recognition, shot selection, delivery, and recovery. Okay. And yeah, you're gonna hear, like I said, you're gonna hear me focusing on the recovery a lot because it is the part that the people neglect the most. The defensive side of this goes a little quicker because you understand the basic concepts on what each of these things are. Range, again, in the defensive range. All right, so don't let me have you come out here again, unless you're taking notes. Taking notes?
I'll give them my notes.
Yeah,
Right. Neil, why don't you come out here? I'll let you take some notes.
Okay.
All right.
Here's the thing about range.
Okay. With the defensive range, you need to know, again, we have the ABCD range, right? And this is where you get into what you were talking about a little bit before. So the defensive range is I need to know where I am within my opponent's range as much as I can, right? Again, I have to count for his offensive range, which is determined by the sweet spot of his stick and whether or not he has access to targets on me with the sweet spot of his stick. That's going to depend on the length of his sword, how tall he is, what his overall range is, and everything, right? The defensive range is kind of difficult to judge because, go ahead and put your guard up, right? We base our perception of range based on the thing that is closest to us, right? For the, if you're fighting somebody's sword and shield, this is the thing that is closest to us, right? So go ahead and put your guard up, right? So I can be here with my shield right in close like this, right? And his perception of range, he's basing that perception on how far away he is from this. So he's basing my threat to him based on how far away I am, right? Ready? Okay, what would just happen? Went from here to here, right? And yes, my sword is closer, but look at where my feet are. I didn't move my feet. All I did was lean in a little bit. I can extend this out a little bit, right? I can use my shield to change that perception of range, right? Right, there's all these things. So defensively, we often base our perception of range based on our relative position or position relative to their shield, okay? That's not really where the range is. Range is determined basically by foot position, their height, their length of sword, all that. It's not, this is a perception, right? So you need to know where you are within your opponent's range, but you need to kind of get away from where the shield is on that. A lot of the anybody use center grip?
Yeah. Yep.
Center grips, you got one?
Right there.
Right. So Neil comes through and shoot him back at her. One of the things about center grip anything, see a lot of this in Ontario with the center grip round. This is all about the deception of range. I mean, this is the center grip thing. I want to get that in your face so you can't see what I'm doing, right? Well, the trick to this is, if my shield is here, what is the maximum distance that I could possibly be from where he is?
Arm's length.
Arm's length. So if you put your shield in my face, I know exactly how far away you possibly could be, right? Whereas if I'm out here, I can extend this out some, and I can change his perception of range.
Cone of defense.
Without yeah, cone of defense, exactly. Well, cone of defense is a little bit different. Cone of defense is well, I'm glad you mentioned that. The cone of defense is the further away your cover gets from you, the more protection it provides you because of the angles that are behind, right? But this is more about the perception of range, right? And you know, there are a number of things that I can do. Even is really my access to targets for me is based on my back foot, my sword foot, basically, right? Because that's the point where I've got the hip rotation, and I'm going to extend out here, right? The amount of extension that I can get from here to deliver is more determined by my sword foot than it is by my shield foot, right? Because I can be out here, but there's still only so much reach that I can get off of this foot. So this one doesn't matter as much, right? So, you know, in adjusting the range and changing the range, you know, you have to be aware of the things that your opponent can do, and you know, you should be basing it more on his sword, his height, the position of his sword foot, not the position of his shield foot. Does that make sense? Yeah. With the position of the shield foot, I mean, the way that kind of comes into play a little more is if I put this in a position where it makes it easier for me to move that back foot, right? That then changes the range, but that's another motion. That's something else that's happening there. So as far as where the blow actually could possibly come from, it's more determined by the sword leg and their height and their sword length, right? So like I say, you get the perception of where you are, and a lot of times you get this thing up in your face, like, oh, I gotta get away from that, right? Or likewise, I can bring it all in here like this, and oh, he's way out there. Yep, he's way out there. So why don't you just go ahead and take a step in there so you can get a little closer to him, right? Because even right here, I still get that without having to move. That's how you can change that perception of range. And defensively, go ahead and sit down. Defensively, you need to be able to understand where you are within your opponent's range. Does that make sense? And again, we're not getting into a whole lot of how you are addressing each of these different parts of the fight. Right now, I just want you to get an understanding of what they are. Okay. So defensive range, you need to understand where you are and what your opponent's capable of, and where you are within his threat zone there. Okay. Blow recognition. Blow recognition is you can basically, if somebody's throwing flat snap, with a shot that's coming in, the defensive choice that you're going to make, is there a difference between this flat snap and this flat snap? Not really. I mean, it's a matter of inches, but what you're going to do to account for that blow that's coming in really is going to be about the same. You know, it's like you're not going to block the here. Oh, I need to go a little higher. I'll block the here instead. You know, the block that you're going to be putting up again with that corner defense, you're putting a block in the way, right? So blow recognition is what's coming at you and what your opponent is throwing at you. One of the ways you can address blow recognition is basically, you could look at it as an individual blow, but I want you to think more about an area, right? Split your body down the center, up, down, left, right. Mm-hmm. Basically, that's all there is. You know, the defensive selection that I'm going to need to account for a blow coming to my upper left quadrant is pretty much the same for that entire quadrant, right? And likewise for the other four quadrants. You know, you split it right at the kill point at the waist, right? Right at your hips there. Up, down, left, right. That's really all you need to account for. Because you know, whether it's a flat snap or it's a wrap coming to this side over here, once you've identified the area that it's going to, then you can make a choice about the defensive selection you're going to use to account for that blow. Typically, as a blow is coming in, you will often be able to recognize first you will recognize left and right, then you will be able to identify up and down, okay? A lot of that is because of the fact that flat snap coming to the one side has very different mechanics from anything coming to the offside. If it goes outside, you gotta pass your hand over this side of your body, and the mechanics for that are very different. So that's why you'll be able to see left and right first. But once I get started with, so once I get to here, right, it's pretty much going, left side for you. And then from there, I can drop the hand down to go leg, or I can roll it over to go lower wrap, or change the head. But it's pretty much going here. So you'll be able to determine left and right first, and then up and down. And if I'm throwing offside, this has to go over my head first. So once it gets here, it's most likely going offside, and then from there you'll be able to determine up and down after that. Okay. So as you're looking at blows that are coming in, all you need to, like I said, up, down, left, right. That's really all you need to identify, because whether it's a wrap or those are more subtle nuances. But again, a majority of the time, what you are going to, the defensive selection you're going to use to account for that blow is going to be the same for that entire quadrant. Does that make sense? So that's blow recognition. That's how you kind of, one of the ways that you can kind of train that a little bit is basically cataloging blows as they come in. Let's see. Sato, can I have you grab sword and shield again? Yes.
Does knowing what you have available as far as openings to your opponent help you identify blow selection as well?
Yes, or blow recognition, area recognition. Yes, because one of the things that I do with my shield, because I can't cover everything, I'm not making any attempt to cover everything. I try to expose a little bit of everything instead of trying to cover all of one thing. If I'm covering all of my head, well, that leaves all of my leg open. And any chance I have of blocking that leg means that I have to travel a greater distance to get there to account for that. So yeah, having an understanding of what is available to your opponent, not only does it help, but you can actually, at a certain point, you can use that not only defensively but offensively as well. Because if I'm exposing certain parts and I know that they're open, right? Because this is my basic stance right here, right? My head is totally open. So when he throws a flat snap at my head, I know that it's there, right? And by exposing a little bit of everything instead of trying to cover all of one thing, it's a shorter distance for me to get to where I need to be to get those blocks on. And at a certain point, not only can I predict where he is throwing, I can dictate where he is throwing. Here it is. Okay, that leg's got to be looking real good. Go ahead and take a shot. You can do that one too. Oh. Right? I can expose that leg, and that's one of the things you can do with some of those smaller shields. You can expose those targets. I mean, it's when you're playing the baiting game, it's a dangerous game to play, because if you're going to counter something, then you need to make sure you're going to be able to get that. Basically, when I'm accounting for blows that are coming at me, when my opponent makes a choice to throw something at me, there are two factors that I need to account for: when and where. Okay? If I put my shield in the right position, to some extent, I can dictate where. I can make a target that is so inviting to my opponent that there's really no other place for him to go, because wow, it just looks really good. But if I told you with absolute certainty, that okay, I'm going to throw a leg snap in at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Right. What are you going to do with that information? Okay, not only are you going to block the blow that I told you I'm going to throw, but you're going to counter it and hit me in the head at the same time, right? The fact is, your opponent does that with body language. Your opponent often tells you where they're going. And that's the thing, is if you know when and where, then you can make decisions based on that information. You can make really good decisions about what you're going to do. Not only accounting for the blows coming in defensively, but being able to strike out it offensively as well. And again, in most cases, a lot of people will, just their body motion or whatever. A lot of times, they're more likely to tell you when. There's that big buildup, and all that motion that goes into, okay, getting the gearing on up to go chase the Roadrunner, So a lot of times they'll tell you when, and if you can dictate where, then you've got everything you need to account for, and you can make your decisions accordingly. Does that make sense? So that's area recognition. Go ahead and stand up there. Yeah, expose a little bit of everything rather than trying to cover all of one thing, right? Up, down, left, right. That's really all you have to account for, because everything after that, once it's in that same quadrant. So defensive selection, the choice you're going to make about it. There are basically three things you can do. You can block it, you can evade it, or you can accept it. Our rule set as it's written says that if somebody is throwing a leg shot at me and I know that I can get a headshot on him, I can let him take that leg, and if I know that I'm going to get the kill off of it. Okay, that's again a bit of a dangerous proposition to play, but it is something you can do. But the better options, either block it or evade it. Okay. Defensively, when you think about blocking, we all to greater or lesser degrees use our sword to help accent or to help kind of help with the defense a little bit. Like I said, when I got just my shield on, holding it right up in front of me, holding it really close up to me. Again, you get all of my head and both of my legs. But where my sword position is relative to that, for me, first off, I'm not going to fight you like this. I know that would be really convenient for you. I know it's really convenient for me when people fight me like this. I get the chin right above the shield like that, because that's just right. So this is more my stance here, right? Again, some of that counter defense, getting the shield a little bit further away from you provides better coverage, cuts down the angles a little bit. There's also some line of sight where if I can out of sight, out of mind. A lot of people, as Killian was saying earlier, three-dimensional. You have to think about the wrap. You can't see the wrap as a target, but it's there, right? But I can put my shield position in a place where I reduce the visibility of targets, which for a vast majority of people cuts down. If they don't see it, then they're not aware of it. But ideally, this is the blocking thing, and this is the killing thing, right? If you are choosing to block with your sword and your shield, right, you are compromising your ability to respond offensively to what your opponent is doing, okay? As I was saying earlier, if you respond offensively to what your opponent is doing, in a vast majority of cases, the defense that you need will be provided for you anyway. If you think about it, if I'm rotating this way to block a leg, right? So, better camera angle. All right. So, I do a lot of what I call body blocking, right? I don't do this. I'm not chasing my shield around, right? I'm actually here where most of what I'm doing is I'm rotating at the waist and bending at the knees to be able to get what I need. It's a lot easier for me to rotate my body into position to account for those those blows coming in, okay? As that is happening, if I rotate over here to cover the leg, look what happens to the sword shoulder, right? This is complementary motion. And every block that you have is going to create some sort of complementary motion, right? If somebody's throwing an offside leg at me and I rotate this way to do that, look what happens to the shoulder, my sword, right? It's kind of putting you in a position where it's already going this way anyway. There's a lot of that complementary motion that happens that, you know, if you block anything over here, you're generating motion going over this way, right? So you need to be mindful of when you are making those defensive selections, right? If like I said, if you are going to use your sword to block with, that's fine. That is a defensive option. But you are compromising your offensive opportunities by doing that. Okay? I'm not saying I don't do it. I do it plenty. But you are definitely better off having this available to strike with. And there's some drills that we're going to do tomorrow that we'll talk about that. But basically, you know, we need to get out of the mindset of my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. You swing, I block, I swing, you block, right? Yes, sir.
When you say as far as using the shield or using the sword as a defensive tool, is it often used as an offensive tool to engage specifically their sword to force them to use it as a defensive tool to gain an advantage?
A lot of times when people are throwing at you and you decide to block, you know, you're going to block the outside head with this, right? Because it's real awesome. And I mean, if you look at the way you guys are using the A-frame, your sword is put in a position where it is a primary portion of your defense, right? Almost right here. I mean, your sword is suddenly it is a major portion of your defense. So how are you going to get from the defensive mindset to the offensive, right? And you know, Bronos makes it look really easy, and it certainly can be done. Like I said, I mean, there's a lot of things that I do when I'll kind of, you know, use my sword to catch a little additional block for something that I probably could have been able to just block with just my shield, right? But you can use them both, but so you're talking about.
So if you're in guard,
okay,
and I want to gain a position, see now it's a lot different, I think, fighting in the mid-realm when you see so many A-frames.
Right.
So if you're standing in an A-frame guard, and I want to gain a position, I will throw intentionally into your sword.
Okay.
Using that time
right,
to gain an advantage either in range or in movement or stuff like that, or an angle.
Okay. So let me ask you this, given these 5 things on each side of the fight that we're talking about, that particular technique, what part of the fight does that fall into?
Well, I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, you're
exactly
grabbing a lot of the stuff, and I know we want to break it all out.
Exactly.
Maybe it's a very complicated question, but.
Yep, and it's good. It's a good question. I mean, you brought up something that is a perfectly valid technique, but just to illustrate the breaking out this process and identifying all of these 10 things that are happening on each side of the fight, what category does that fall into?
Let me go back to my notes.
Okay. Offensively, we have range, target recognition, blow selection.
Well, that was, I mean, obviously, since I'm initiating that, I'm doing shot selection,
right,
and delivery,
right,
with the intention of a good
okay,
that will turn into more opportunity.
Okay. What part did you miss?
Range. I mean, changing my range as I go.
No. You
Delivery?
went right to shot selection without target recognition.
Oh, I was playing the target recognition as I wanted to intentionally engage their sword.
Okay.
Maybe that
so again,
shouldn't be.
So the question here is, why are you throwing that blow? Are you throwing that blow because there is a target, or are you throwing that blow because you're setting up something to go somewhere else?
I wanted to intentionally throw that blow to hopefully open up a different set of targets,
Right, but you weren't throwing at a
particular target.
particular
Well,
target. And I'm not saying.
I might be throwing at their head knowing that I will probably hit their sword, or that they have no real chance of blocking with their shield. My
Right.
intention is, well, I'll throw at their head. If they do nothing, I'll kill them. If they do anything, they will 99% of the time block with their sword because it's already there.
Right. And this is, I mean, it happens, and I'm not saying it's not valid technique. But let's try to look at the better solution, right? The ideal solution is recognizing a target that is presented to you, throwing a similar blow at an existing target that has a better chance of actually killing your opponent, right? And believe me, I understand the setup. I use plenty of setup myself, but from a position of higher understanding and trying to make it all better, there's probably another target that you could that is already exists that you could throw at that may even give you the same thing as you're looking at, right? So when we do a setup, that's a pre-programmed set of instructions, right? As opposed to letting the onboard computer take over and doing the target recognition. It's like, okay, and I do it. Like I said, believe me, I've got my patterns. I've got my things that are easy for me to do and things I like to do, right? But in almost every case for me, when I decide that I'm going to do something and I get that brilliant plan, it's like, okay, I could probably hit him with this one, right? A little fade, a little juke, this, that, or the other thing, and I'll throw a flat snap out there after I think I got somebody completely set up, and they duck or I just miss it and I completely whip this shot, right? Oh yeah, I think I can get that flat snap, and all of a sudden I'm out here, right? And if I don't recover out of that, I'm completely hosed, right? Those are the times when the training really kicks in, right? And this is one of the differences in fighters of varying skill is a lot of people, when you get that failure, you're just hosed. The better fighters will actually capitalize on the failure of their delivery and use that to create something else. And for me, when it happens, that's when I truly go into that target recognition and all these 5 things that we're supposed to be doing. But I definitely do. I'm just as guilty as anybody of pre-programming my fights from time to time. But when things are working best for me is when I'm allowing that program, the onboard computer, to kick in and recognizing targets and making decisions about those targets based on what is presented to me and all this, right? So, like I said, I just kind of wanted to kind of illustrate where we could go with this if we're doing all these things properly as we should. And the more that we look at it from that perspective, the more we train with that mindset, the more then it really does become that easy where targets just show up and then they get hit. That'll learn you. That'll teach you to leave a target open for you, right? And so that's just it's where we could go with it. Not that there's anything wrong with how you're doing things, but how good do you want to be, right? And like I said, you throw that shot out there, it's a good setup, and it's going to lead to something else. And you can throw that one out there, and as you complete that recovery from there, that's where you get to check for how is my opponent reacting to what I have now done, right? And if you can separate out those 2 things, instead of, and this happens to you throw your setup and you go to where you think that setup is going to lead, because oftentimes you throw that offside to engage that blow, and you step in, and where does it go from there? Where is that blow most likely to go?
Oh, after
For you.
a leg or a head.
Okay. A leg or a head, depending on which one actually comes open, right? But as you throw that one out there and you complete that recovery, you get to check leg or head. It doesn't always just go, offside to the head, right? So that's still taking that's completing that recovery, and that's taking that pause to make sure that you are selecting the better of those 2 choices. Does that make sense? And that's where we're trying to take this. That's that decision making that we're trying to get better at, that really can happen in the middle of the fight. You know, I mean, I saw Bruce Lee quote recently that, you know, my form is a result of your form, my actions are a result of your actions. You know, Bruce Lee was one of those guys that was famous for being able to literally making those decisions in the middle of the fight and throughout the flow of the fight, and that every blow that he threw was a result of what his opponent was doing. And you know, as fast as he is, you know, he doesn't throw combinations of blows. And that's where we're trying to get to, is the combination is a series of individual blows that all kind of happen in rapid succession. But every shot you throw has to be determined by what happened from the shot before. You throw one shot out there, the recovery that you get off of every blow. I mean, the recovery for a flat snap is not always coming right back to the shoulder. You know, the recovery is determined by how that blow impacted or did not impact on your opponent. If they duck out of it, or if you just totally missed the range, or if they pulled the range out of it, there's an infinite number of ways that recovery path is going to be determined after that. It's not, I mean, you know, I hear people talking about training a teardrop recovery. And well, it's great if your opponent is going to stand as Appel does, so you can do that, right? But in a lot of cases, or in every case, the return path is determined by what happened to the blow itself. Right. Sorry, again, another tangent there, kind of like that. Yes, sir.
Is there an exercise we can use to train? I have trouble getting dependents over that hurdle of don't run a program, look for the opportunity after each shot.
Yep, there are drills, and we're going to do a couple of those drills tomorrow, actually.
Is it through analysis of type, or is it?
No, there are drills. There's two drills that I actually there's 4 drills that I run primarily that oftentimes you can start a practice with. One is called strike as you block. The other one is block as you strike. There's a 2-second drill that I do that is for recovery, and then there's a kill drill that I do. And those are just a handful of them. I mean, basically any deficiency that we identify through one of these 5 things on each side of the fight that's happening, you can create a drill to address that deficiency. And the training gets back into doing walkthroughs. It's like if you just can't see that flat snap coming, you keep getting hit by that same flat snap. I'm going to stand in front of you and do it real slow. This is what a flat snap looks like. How are you going to block this? You're going to block this with your with your sword. You're going to block it with your shield. Trying to get you to do it with your the defensive tool, ideally. But we're going to just stand there and walk through it and go over it and over and over it and build that muscle memory. Any deficiency that you isolate through analysis, you can create a drill to address that deficiency. That's what the training part is. And once we've done that training part, and I've thrown 100 flat snaps at you and had you block them, then you go to practice against somebody who's fighting for the most part full speed, full contact, and you get to see how well you get to practice blocking the flat snap at full speed. That's the process. Right? Make sense? Range, blow recognition, defensive selection, and then delivery and recovery, same thing. These are pretty quick for these other ones. If you are going to use your shield to block, you need to get your shield back to wherever your starting position was before that blow struck. Likewise, if you're using your sword, if you're going to cross block, or if you're using your sword to block, you need to get your sword back to where it was. Delivery and recovery for defense. If you've decided that you're going to block it, put the block up and then get it back. If you decided that you're going to evade it, there are a number of ways that you can use evasion to account for a blow, right? Best way to not get hit by a blow is to not be there when it lands, right? But there's definitely a danger to evasion being in one direction only, right? That's not fighting. I want you to think about evading forward and evading with an offensive mindset. Here, let's come up. Got a sword board there. Actually, maybe on this side. Okay. Ideally, I mean, you don't. If you're not going to be involved in the fight, and you're just going to keep running back with that flight, instinct, then why bother showing up, right? This is a sport where we're trying to kill them, they're trying to kill us, right? With the offensive mindset, if you consider that there's basically, I do a footwork drill, it's a compass drill, which basically there's only really 8 directions that you can move: front, back, left, right, and then 45-degree angles off of those, right?